code reviews can be a pain, right? A lot of people don't like them, and we see many cases where code reviews are not that great. And again, surprise, AI can help. We see a rise in AI code reviewers that can help you assess your code or improve it before you reach production. Let's have a look. Hi everyone, welcome to Technology Explorations at Dataminded. In this series, we give you an initial look in new or interesting technologies. My name is Jonny, technology lead here at Dataminded, and today we're going to look into AI assistants for code reviews. And for that, I've brought with me Hannes. Welcome, Hannes.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How are you doing today? All good?
All good, all good. Ready to show you some things.
So what brought you to this topic? AI assistant code reviews. What is the reason this triggered you?
Yes, so I think we were all quite amazed when we first used whatever model it was. Was it a GPT model or a Gemini model or Claude or whatever? A lot of people are utilizing that, or at least to some extent should, I think. That's my opinion. But you've also noticed, I think, Jonny, that it sometimes doesn't know really what it's doing. It doesn't have enough context, which is most of the time our fault, but sometimes it also just makes mistakes. And you've been there. It's not always a walk in the park. If you accept that and want to go to production, you go through PRs. But after a while, the PRs start to become so big because people are producing so much code because it's so easy to produce code. And I was really interested if you're automating software engineering itself, writing the code, can we also automate or leverage AI to do the PRs itself?
And so, if I understand correctly, we generate a lot more code due to AI systems. And essentially, you were looking for a system that would reduce the burden of the code review mechanism.
Yes, and I think it's twofold. Indeed, it removes the reduction, but on the other hand, you will always miss things. As a human, it's easy to overlook something, especially if you don't know the repo and you only have a few people to get things done. The chance that you miss a mistake, even a small one, it's very big. So I think that's another benefit next to the burden itself of doing it.
So also increasing the quality of the reviews.
Yes.
If I look at my own experience, what I personally like in pull request reviews is if they go beyond a code review. To me, this is beyond coding. This is also about checking the logic, checking whether everything works, doing a local test with the code, and giving feedback on that, also on the design. Quite often, I do see at companies that there's lots of rubber stamping, like people just approving stuff. So I do think there is a huge chance to optimize this workflow, to have better reviews. So I'm very looking forward to what you're going to show me. So I would say, let's dive in.
I've looked at a few tools that I can test out. The space is quite big already, so it's really growing. And here are a few of the big players out there. There is CodeRabbit, which we will take a look at. There is Codo. And we have also Greptile, Sourcery, Bito, and quite a few others. We'll try to test two different ones, but in general, validating AI seems always as a hard task, at least to me.
Yeah, indeed. There's a few benchmarks you could use, but I think it would be good if we could already get a feeling on how these things work.
Yes, indeed. So let's just dive into the first. So what I've been doing, Jonny, is this project. It's called the Sandy Insights project. It's a little internal project for the people listening in or watching. And Jonny asked to review something and to do a few changes. Me, not knowing the repo, and started vibe coding. So I asked some feedback of what it was. I checked, okay, what do I need to change, where, made a few changes. I have Cursor, VS Code with an extra layer with AI integration, basically. And one of the extensions I installed is CodeRabbit. So in here, you see I'm logged in as myself on GitHub, and I installed the CodeRabbit extension. And in here, I can see I'm on a separate branch, and I can compare to main. And in here, I can review all my changes. So I will already started because it takes a while. It's setting up, reviewing the changes, etc.
Okay, so you made a branch and then you vibe coded some things, or you programmed yourself, and now you have the chance to let it review the pull request already that you could create. This is not a pull request yet. This is just the two branches that will compare.
Yes, very good point. So indeed, it's not yet a pull request. I will make a pull request right now. I don't think I have any local changes. Everything is up to date. So let me quickly go to GitHub while we're waiting for the review anyway. So this is the code base. So let's contribute. Let's open a pull request. I will just create a pull request for now. I know, Jonny, in the future, I would like to add some extra descriptions, but for now, I'll just create a pull request.
Okay, for once, this is okay.
For once, this is okay. I'm allowed. So let's go back to CodeRabbit. So CodeRabbit has been very helpful. The Rabbit has been working, and you see here quite a few things popping up. So again, we're looking at a certain branch and we're comparing it to main. It's checked 12 files and it detected 9 issues. So
Okay.
what you can do is I go here through the comments, or you click here on the files. So this is the biggest file I've changed, or the file with the most changes of myself. So there's a potential issue. I can say, click on it, and that brings me to the actual line in question. So here it tells me there's a type mismatch for origin column prefill. So the multi-select column says it's a Streamlit column type, so it's a Streamlit application, and the multi-select column allows you to select multiple aspects. So the prefill here is currently set on an empty string, but that does not make sense since the default value should be a list because it can be multiple values. So that's CodeRabbit is complaining, and it seems to me that this is actually a valid remark. What I could do is indeed look this up and validate with actual documentation of Streamlit that this is actually the case. So let's assume that the AI is correct in this regard. Then I can either apply the suggested change, fix with AI, or I can also ignore when I think it's not relevant in this case. So let's fix it with AI. And something very cool is happening. I don't know if you saw what happened, but
it popped up, it opened up a new chat.
Yes, exactly. So in Cursor, directly start a new chat with, in this file, it outlines blah, 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 and then it says actually what it found. So it gives a bit of context where it should find it, and then it gives the error. So this allows me to fix it with AI.
So you basically had these different options. The first one was actually the diff that it proposed to directly apply it, which is already suggested by CodeRabbit. But you chose the option to fix with AI, which then transfers this request to fix to a chat window for Cursor, which can then use different models and maybe more powerful things to fix it.
Exactly. So I'm not sure how this integrates, for example, to Copilot, or if you're using another integration within VS Code. But for example, for Cursor, it works out of the box.
Hannes, when would you opt for this AI system to kick in, like here with the supplied context, versus just pressing the apply now button?
Yes, good question. So I think apply now, you should always and only do when it is actually correct and you agree with it and you say, yes, this is indeed much better. A simple rename here, indeed a simple default value. Either this is my research and I ask, is this the case? And I basically ask for a second opinion here. So I would use this mainly for either you want to ask more context, more feedback, or if you're unsure about the implementation.
It does say it can confirm the issue. It knows about the issue from the context that was given to it. And it will, in this case, confirm that the fix is indeed what CodeRabbit proposed.
Yes, and it even suggested a second edit, because somewhere else I seem to have made the same mistake. So it even went one step above. Maybe I'll open a second, which here is nice. It seems like a critical logic error. So here it starts complaining again about this regarding the same column that it returns a list of selected values, and the conversion and splitting it by comma produces incorrect results. It gives an example, client work training, and I expected to split on comma, which wouldn't work because then the string, etc. So here it proposes yet another change, and it also asks to update the error raising, because here I use the same logic. So let's say, okay, I agree with this, I've checked this, I validated it, I tested it myself in my Python terminal. I can now apply the suggested change. Whoop, you see something going over, looks very fancy, and then it's done. I can also unresolve the comment and going again, but now it changed a few lines. So you can here again see the changes it made from the test strip, and that fixed it. And now I can go all through the rest. I can either ignore. If I say, well, this issue, I don't think this is an issue, I press ignore. And then you go through the list. I do it actually one by one on my own, and I go through this. What CodeRabbit can also do is, if you take a look at the website, next to CLI work, which is actually what I did now, it can also comment on PRs itself. So what I did now is actually, I call it a pre-flight check. So basically,
Yeah.
before I even create a PR, I check myself locally. Well, did I do anything wrong or whatever? But if I make the PR, if you have it enabled and pay for it, and then it can actually do it in the UI itself. So here you can see a few screenshots and it's commenting on PR itself, which is really cool. So you have two places in your whole development process where you can run this app. So before even creating a PR and after creating the PR.
And for the PRs, then it needs a GitHub integration, I suppose.
Yes,
or Bitbucket
then it
or
needs a
whatever you
GitHub
use.
integration. So you need to allow access to your GitHub repo to do to make changes.
It's essentially a bot, I assume, that just visits your PR and then gives comments.
Exactly.
And what I wonder is, what you showed locally, does it only consider code that was committed on that branch, or does it also consider uncommitted code?
Good question. So it basically, there is your answer. It can review uncommitted changes, committed changes, or all changes, which is quite useful indeed. So you can, even before you commit the change, so even if you do test-driven development and you're very meticulous in the way you never commit non-working code, well, this is a nice feature that it even reviews uncommitted changes before you commit.
And so the comments that it generated, are these all applicable only to the changes that you've made, or does it go beyond that? Because there could be a bug in your main code already. Will it simply ignore it?
Yeah, so it will ignore code that's already there, in the sense of it will not review it, but it will look for it as context. But it will not assume, say, hey, last year or last month you made a change to this. It looks like the method is not really correct. It will not comment on it. So it's really only on your changes.
Yeah, okay. I also see there in the Pro version, you can use coding guidelines. That sounds very interesting to me. Like if you have specific standards, if you can ship them, and the review also checks that.
Yeah, I think this is very useful. Also, there is a lot of options as well in AI assisted coding, both with GitHub Copilot, with Cursor, with Juni, whatever you use. I think all products now have an option to give you guidelines that, in combination with pre-commit hooks that allow you to automatically do other checks as well. I think it also limits the need of this, but it is useful nonetheless. So this is something I use myself, actually. So I highly recommend testing it out for yourself to see if it works. For repos, I know pretty well. It can be that 50% or more, or 80% of the comments I can disregard. Basically, because I have enough context about what's going on, I can say I can ignore this and this and this, because I'm quite sure it's an overkill what they suggest, or I think it's not needed, or too defensive programming in that case, and then I just ignore the comments.
Yeah, but that's interesting. So that means like 80% of the comments are not really useful for you personally.
So it depends. In this case, I think it was very useful because I vibe coded quite a lot. The first two comments seemed very plausible, and I don't understand the repo well. If I have a repo where I handwritten, so to say, the code base 95% or 90%, then often I feel the tendency that indeed 80% of the comments is not really that useful. But I have got, for example, a few variables that I used the wrong variable name, for example, which got through a unit test, and if he didn't have catch it, it would have been a bug later on. So I actually caught a few bugs, which would have caused at least some trouble in production with this.
I do want to dive in maybe on one of these issues. Like there's this PII exposure, always interesting. So
Yes.
I'm actually curious what it suggests there. Remove or mask the email address from the UI.
Yes. So this is a point which doesn't make that much sense, right? So I added this as a debug information that I am logged in as Hans de Smet at dataminded.com. Is that personal information? Yes, but it's displayed only for me. So it doesn't make that much sense because it's in the session state of the current user shows you the user email. So does it make sense that it's actually a PII issue? I don't think so. So in this case, I would ignore it.
Yeah, indeed. And the solution gives us, like, it says remove this from the UI, which I can see it does there. It only shows the number of user answers. And it also adds something extra in the if test. It also adds like and user answers. So when I saw this, I had to actually extend my mental context because I was looking for, it will just remove the email, but it actually added a few things to the test as well, which I had to think about. So I would prefer if it gave me a bit more explanation on what it did there. but it seems to be correct. And then it gives you a second option.
Yes.
So it says you can mask it, and it gives you a way of masking the email address, which I also like that it does that.
Yeah.
But now we don't get an in-place button like apply this. You get different options, I see.
Yes, so it's not always there, the button of automatically accepting. So sometimes you have to do it yourself, either copy pasting it and changing it or just manually typing it. Sometimes it makes you think also about other aspects, which is quite nice. If you maybe you wouldn't just thought of the PII data, or you wouldn't think of security logging tool I tested out as well, which I can't unfortunately anymore, which is quite interesting, and I would like to mention as well is Sourcery. So Sourcery is also a code quality tool, and it also states it does code review for the AI era. So it does also security scanning and team analytics. Not sure what that means, but the code review, very interesting, is free for open source projects. So it also comments on the PR itself, like in GitHub, but it's also a tool you can use in your IDE as code review. So it also works on both places in your development flow. And I also got quite nice results. And the nice thing about Sourcery, at least with the comments here in the IDE, was that my cursor could actually see them all. It had the context of all the comments it posted. I could just start typing and it could see all the comments and integrate really well with the cursor, which was quite nice. But if you want to use it for private repos, at least in the IDE, you have to take a pro license. It is another nice option, especially for open source projects.
Is this possible to demo it on one of our public repositories?
Yes, I think so.
Live, I mean.
Live, we can try that.
We have the Technology Explorations repository, which is public. Yeah, that one.
Demo Technology Explorations. Open a new window. I don't know the file.
So this is already the Sourcery plugin that you have, or extension.
Yes, the extension is installed. I am currently... I don't know.
You're on the main branch, so you might.
Yeah, I think so. Compare with main. Here it gave an overview. There's one general issue found. The issue bug is division by zero in percentage calculation, which is one of the most default risks you can have, I think, in programming. But at least it is indeed possible. If your amount of employees is zero, you have an issue. Here is the comment. So if I hover over it, the blue cookie design is actually the problem. So I don't know how actually it integrates with it, but here it says on both lines, because it's 2 lines, takes it together and I can fix it in chat. Enter.
And in terms of comparison to CodeRabbit, CodeRabbit gave already a proposal quite often. It says like, this is what you can do to change.
Yes.
Here we don't get a proposal and we need to use the chat to actually get it fixed.
Yeah. So here, cursor, so it made the changes for me. Again, down here it seems to be the same issue, which wasn't getting flagged. So here I don't see anything saying about lines 81 to 83, but cursor seemed smart enough to fix that. A suggestion for some dates.
And here it does give
Here it actually
potential
does
change.
Give proposed changes. But again, I think I have to quick fix. So here, if I do the quick fix, I can actually apply the fix buff.
This was confusing. There were many quick fixes.
Yes, so it seems a bit, I'm not sure why. It is a bit confusing.
Yeah, in terms of user experience, this is not ideal.
No, I think it's always duplicate, it seems. Yes, see, it's always...
Yeah. And if we look at this, compared to CodeRabbit, it seems like CodeRabbit was actually a bit more advanced.
In general, I was a bit more... I thought that the integration was better, in the sense that I don't know if CodeRabbit by then had a fixing with AI button. I don't think it had that.
Oh,
so it was back then only the quick fix or ignore, but not a fix with AI.
Ah, okay.
Which that was the part I really liked about the integration. One cool thing it had the option to create diagrams, which was very cool. So it has the context of the open file.
Ah, okay, yes.
The UI is maybe not the best.
Okay, nice.
So that is quite cool.
This one is actually quite useful, I think.
Yes.
I mean, it's still very minimal, but I can imagine what it could do.
Yeah, I really like the diagram. This was quite fun to play with, but I don't know how useful it is.
Do you have a rough idea on the cost and the cost models?
CodeRabbit, it's per developer as well. Sourcery pricing, let's quickly check. Per seat. So all it's per seat. So depending on the size of your organization, except if it's enterprise.
Okay, so they're all charging per seat, and it's roughly in the $20-$30 range, more or less. But so if I understand correctly, CodeRabbit and Sourcery are quite similar. They have this cursor integration. They also have this dashboard and GitHub integration. So they're direct competitors.
Yeah, exactly. I think CodeRabbit is the biggest player out there in general. I think this, to be fair, having this for free in an open source project, got me in, I would say. I am curious to see, at least in the space we're in, if it's gonna change and how much it will improve. Because if you need context over different repos, then it becomes, I think, very difficult for AI, especially in data engineering, platform engineering. There's a lot of integrations, a lot of glue between components. You still need to have that context.
You mean also between different projects and repositories?
Yes.
But we have a video for that. Emil demoed me cursor workspaces, which allows you to go beyond your project and beyond your code base.
That's very well hidden promotion.
Sorry.
It's good. It's good. I like it. I will check it out, actually.
How would you summarize your experience with all these AI code assistants or pull request assistants?
I would say, first of all, it was fun playing around with. So if you are curious, try it out for yourself, see what works. If you have a team that maybe wants to use it, at least give it a chance and find out what works for you. Is it a pre-flight check? Good. Is it having both Sourcery and CodeRabbit on the same repo and doing it all? Go ahead and play with it.
Yeah, okay. My takeaway on all of this is basically you showed me that you have two variants. You have this local variant, and a pre-flight check is always a good idea before you push. And then, just like with pre-commit hooks, you could also run something on your PRs so that everybody can benefit from that in a centralized way. We saw several different tools. The space there is getting a bit crowded, it seems. I think this is very nice to automate also some review systems and to get feedback fast.
Yes. And one thing I might forgot to say is that I showed you two UI integrations, so both Sourcery and CodeRabbit here via UI extension. But for example, CodeRabbit released a CLI tool. So you can also use it in the CLI, which makes, for example, I'm also a PyCharm user. I don't only use Cursor.
Yeah.
There you don't have an extension for CodeRabbit, so there it becomes a bit more difficult. So there I could, for example, use the CLI, which is maybe a nice thing to know.
All right. Good. Hannes, thanks a lot for showing us around in the space of the AI pull request reviewers.
Very happy to do so.
All right, let's wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you all, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.